So what is the essence of your view of technology, screens?
I don't think that screen time is a real concept. Playing Candy Crush on your phone when you should be sleeping, at 1 a.m. because you have insomnia,
It's not the same.
is fundamentally different than like calling your grandma on FaceTime. If I could make like one very tactical change, something that I've argued about, something that I've argued that we should do, I would eliminate high school.
Completely.
In particular. Yeah.
And send them to work?
Work or go to college early.
Do you have any living heroes?
I mean, there are lots of people who I admire. I don't know if I would call any of them living heroes. My heroes are all dead, I think. My actual heroes. Living heroes, I mean, everybody alive is so complicated.
I'm Tal Tsfany. At 40, I was introduced to a philosophy that transformed my life. My passion is applying philosophical principles towards a better, I might add, heroic life. Join me as I sit down with people that I find inspiring, guided by their authentic values that define who and how they pursue their happiness. These high-achieving individuals aren't just living a good enough life, they're flourishing. This is the happiest man alive.
We're in Austin, Texas. We're going to meet with Matt Bateman. Matt is... every time I meet with Matt, I'm excited because I know that he's going to say something that's just going to be mind-blowing. I got to know Matt really well when we went on offsite in Colorado. We met in this amazing place and we spent a whole weekend talking about education. What is education? So Matt is a philosopher, PhD philosophy, but he specializes in education, philosophy of education, and specifically Montessori education. And so the intersection of objectivism and Montessori is a very interesting thing for me. I love education. I am in the business of education, so I'm interested in everything he has to say about education. But also, he's such an amazing thinker, and the way he talks about parenting and love and art is just inspiring. So hopefully that will come out in our discussion.
Hi. Welcome. You did. Come on in. Into my home.
Thank you.
This one's life. What's it called? This is Temptation. This is Bouguereau. It's a biblical reference in a way that I like. I like the story of human beings steal fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But it's, this does not feel like a sin, and it should not, as every child eats from this tree.
Why this organization?
One of the nice things about pegboards is that you can reorganize them at a whim. So you can just take a hook off and put it on. And so this is the one that I landed on. I mean, this is just the stuff that I use. I use everything on.
I would love for people to get to know Matt a little bit, what kind of a thinker he is. The thoughtfulness of Matt when it comes to raising children and what is agency and how you nurture an independent thinker and valuer. If that comes out in the conversation, I'll be very happy.
Nice.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
I'm excited about this interview. I want to start with something I call the hypothesis. So I'll do the Matt Bateman hypothesis. Let's see what you think about it.
Okay.
Matt is an observer of humans. He is fascinated by the human mind, its development, and he is in awe of our mind's limitless capacity to imagine and create great things. The reason he is attracted to education is his passion for human agency, knowing that the formative years of one's life are among the most critical in guiding a life towards fulfillment and happiness. Matt is interested in pedagogy, the art of architecting the path for children to discover the world and themselves in it, becoming ever more independent and eventually free agents who pursue meaning and purpose. He understands the workings of human agency, that you'll never find him baby talk to a child. He respects them with patience and sophisticated attention. Matt is a lifelong learner. He loves the process of acquiring knowledge, the initial fascination with new realms of knowledge and concepts, the research, the integration, the discovery, and eventually the mastery of a domain. He loves work. He sees the dignity in exerting focused effort towards achieving a task, reaching a goal, and as he told me once, the reward of getting paid. Matt loves simplicity and organization. Just look at the pegboards in his house, on his website, and in the dense short poetry that he reads. He loves words and attuned to small nuances. He pays attention to little details and has a sensitive eye for precision. He's a romantic and can easily get emotional about art and about things he cares about. Matt is a people watcher, so much so that he even married one. What do you think?
It's pretty good. Interview
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
What did I get really right, or maybe I got wrong?
I mean, I don't know if I definitely love human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think of myself as an observer of human beings. That feels like a separate skill set, though I'm flattered to be called an observer of human beings.
Okay. I just don't know how you can be so observant about the processes of how we get to be who we are without observing us.
I'm sure I do observe human beings. It's just that is not terminology under the heading of which I think about myself. But yeah, I mean, definitely love people, love the way that people change, love the unlocking of human potential, especially as people grow up. And I love other people who love other people, which is for sure one of the reasons why I married my wife, who's just a consummate lover of the ambition, the most ambitious in every person. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know, we just got to get it down to like tweet length.
Exactly. How did your work inform the way you parent? I mean, what is the one single thing that you think you took from your learnings as an educator that you now implement with the way you parent your kids?
I mean, Montessori made me much more sensitive to core Montessori idea. When a child is invested in a developmentally valuable activity, you protect that and you don't interrupt it and you just let it go. Like, you don't try to help. You don't say, yay, good job. You don't like get in there and encourage them. You don't you just like, if their sibling comes along, you try to protect them. You protect that sacred time. Concentration is sacred in Montessori. And I don't think I really knew that before I read Montessori. That was the first insight that I got from Montessori, and it's one of her most famous insights, and it's true. Yeah, it's like, if you've, I don't know, you're a parent, so maybe you can share stories, but like, I mean,
Yeah.
when Adam, my younger son, when he was like 4 or 5 weeks old, we had him on I made a changing table for him out of a tool bench. And I there was like diaper changing stuff, but also some of my tools were still on it. And he would just lie on the changing table after we changed them for like half an hour and just like stare at the tools and kind of reach for them and bat at them. Nothing could hurt him. I would just sit on the couch and watch him stare at the tools for half an hour. Like, this is a 5-6 week old baby. And like, I think absent Montessori, I would have just been like, I'm picking him up.
And
Yeah, like,
do something.
or like talk to him while he's doing that.
Yeah.
It's so natural. It's
Right.
It's not at all like a bad instinct to like want to play with children. That's
Right.
like one of the most human instincts. But that has informed a lot of my work, and my parenting.
Well, how do you connect that to I call it the sovereignty principle, which is I found working with adults and employees and running meetings and teams and so on, is that whenever you start a sentence with "you should," immediately, 80% of their attention is gone because of the sovereignty principle, which is, for me, is, do you really understand how agency works? And the fact that you're already leaning on me and tell me what I should immediately takes a lot of the attention away. Do you think that's the same thing happening? Because it's not just with children. I talk to my my 20-year-old or my 24-year-old, and it's the same thing. It's like, I don't tell them what they should be doing. I can say, look, in my experience, you want to think about this or think about that. Do you think it's another facet of the same aspect of something about human agency that needs that independence, that sovereignty on, I am the prime mover, nobody...
Yeah. I mean, I think it basically is the same thing, though, with should in particular. So, I mean, there are two senses of should, or you have to, or you need to, or, all these terms. One is like a deontological or authoritarian sense, like, because I said so, or because God told me to, or because the moral law within, whatever. Like, this is what is obligated to me.
Right.
This is my duty, And duty comes in many shapes and flavors, but like, you know, it always has the same psychological flavor, which is like, I have to do this thing, you know, regardless of what I want to do. And I don't understand why. There's another sense of should, which is like, given your goals, all things considered, the following will help you accomplish your goals. and often when we tell children things like, you should get into the car and buckle your seatbelt. Why should I? It's like, because we're going to the birthday party that you want to go to, and that's how you get there. And if you delay for too long, we'll be so late that we can't even go because like this party actually has a specific start time for some reason. And it's like, that's should doesn't there mean because I said so. Mm-hmm. Should there means because we have, including you, have agreed to do this thing that we all want to do together, and that has certain requirements. I think my observation is if you raise children on the premise of they're independent and you generally explain things to them and you're responsive to their reasons and like your whole focus is on creating a child who can be more and more independent over time, recognizing that they start off less independent and they become more independent, and you just kind of take that approach and infuse it, like they don't necessarily have the same kind of negative reaction to shoulds. They come to see shoulds as like less deontological and more like task requirements.
Got it.
You know?
So it's more like a reaction, a negative reaction to more of the you should because I say so.
Yeah. And everybody, I mean, it's a deeply human thing, a deeply human, deeply American thing when somebody says you should do something, like to be like, F you, like I'm not, like, you know, I do what I want. But I think it's like when I tell myself that I should do things, the concept should is good, and you should have a concept of should because it's the proper way to conceptualize task requirements.
Right. What do you enjoy most about being a father to Alice and Adam? I mean, what is the aspect that you're like, whoa, this is the most joyful aspect of it?
It's hard to pick. I mean, the rocket ship growth of like, I mean, I think I get smarter and better every year at some things, you know, like I'm a better educator and a better writer every year. They get better at everything every year. Like 100 times faster than I get. So it's like I'm a better writer, and like for every single physical and mental and whatever skill in their life, they're like 10 or 100 times better on a year-over-year, month-over-month basis. And it's just like, just watch it. It's insane watching that. I mean, I mean, even like, so Adam is 3 and Alice is 6. And just thinking like in 3 years, Adam is going to get from where he is now to where Alice is, like roughly, you know, it won't be exactly the same, but like, how is that possible? Like they're in different universes, and they talk to each other. But like Adam, my son was asking Alice the other day. He was like, what's a 500? And she was like, well, 500 is 5 times 100, or half of 1,000. She like gave him this mathematical answer, and he just kept being like, but what is that? What's a 500? He has this very concrete sense, and like he's not even in the realm of abstraction yet, and like she is like doing advanced mathematics, and like how do you get from there to there? And you get to watch that whole process. There's the rocket ship growth. There's the fact that like both of my children have roughly the personality of my wife, which is like it's fun to watch my wife grow up, and it's fun to watch them interact and get frustrated with each other. There's, I mean, there's the fact that they are like, I mean, I have spent so much of my life thinking about education and working with other people's children. It is much different and much harder and much more rewarding to raise your own children than it is to educate other people's. It turns out that the parenting relationship is unique in some ways, like they are individuating from you, and thinking about like, okay, I want them to love me and I want to support them, but like, how am I individuating? Like they're also like trying to keep me away more than they keep their teachers away, you know. I'm just like, why am I fighting with them more than the teacher? Like all of that I love. So I don't know. I love the whole thing. I love being a father.
That's great. So why pegboards? I mean, what is it like a pedagogical tool for your kids? Is it the organization, the simplicity? What is it?
I think I've always, since I was a kid, been handy. Is that the word for it? Or like a tinkerer. Like I like tools and fixing things and doing things myself. And I mean, like the aesthetics of pegboards is kind of like it's underlining that. It's like this is the sort of house where people do things and where we fix things ourselves. And I think that is now a little bit less common to find in my life than it was, or I don't know. Like, I'm always a little bit nervous of being like, back in my day, like everybody kind of fixed their own air conditioner themselves. Like, that's probably not true. I don't think that my parents fixed the air conditioners themselves, but it just.
But everybody had a pegboard, like a tool.
Did they though? Like, I didn't grow up around any pegboards, but I just like especially once I had kids. Like, I've always been a kind of tinkerer guy, but I wanted to have things around that were available for them, that they felt like it was on the wall, like books are on the shelf that they can reach for and that they can do things with. And I wanted them to have parents who they saw like doing things very actively, whether that's cooking or fixing things or whatever. And it just seemed like an obvious way to do that as pegboards. I've always liked pegboards too.
Yeah.
So like,
I remember
great,
my parents came to an open night with the teachers and the number one complaint is that nobody teaches us to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was like, I don't know, like I was 10 or 12 and one of the parents said, if you guys don't teach my kid how to change a tire, you failed as a school system.
But that's, I mean, I run schools and I'm fine with schools teaching kids how to change tires, but just like, how often have the parents changed tires? The last time that the parent changed a tire, did they include their kid?
Right.
And kind of really making that a point of like, when I unload the dishwasher, I try to involve my kids. Involving your kids in unloading the dishwasher is a massive cost. Like, I mean, it like takes 4,000 to 20,000 times longer.
Right.
Like, to have your kids help you with something. But I mean, like, I've never changed a tire with my kids, both of the times in recent memory that I've blown a tire. My kids weren't there. But my daughter did a year or two ago, maybe this was more like 3 years ago, she had like a bookmark that she got from some event and she was fiddling with it in the backseat of the car and she was pressing it against the window and it like dropped between where the window rolls down and the car door. And she was like inconsolable. And when I got home, I was like, what should we do about this? And we talked about it and we're like, oh, we should pop open the door. And so we went and I've never done this before. And so we figured it out together. We went and got screwdrivers. We kind of disassembled our car door and the panels and we got it and she helped me and she was like over the moon and we put it all back. And like, I don't primarily blame schools for an absence of that.
Yeah.
The schools certainly don't help. They certainly don't contribute to counter pushing that. I mean, I had a shop class when I was a kid, and it was pretty bad. So this has been going on as long as I've been alive. But just like having a little bit of a high agency culture around kind of not necessarily having to DIY everything yourself, but just like, we're a family that does things. Like pegboards help with that. I like that style. Yeah. I like that version of it, so I have them. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself one of the world's leading experts in Montessori these days, or
I mean, it's a small pool. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I brandish that.
No,
but like,
I
mean, I know.
Objectively speaking, do you think you understand her philosophy of education?
Yes, her philosophy of education, her writing, her body of work. I know not literally as much as anyone, but I know, I know a lot. In terms of like the nuances of how to present the Pink Tower to a 3-year-old, there are lots of people who know more than me.
I get it. But so let's dive into, because I guess our audience is interested in philosophy in general. So you know Rand, and you've studied Rand, and you've studied Maria Montessori. Well, let's start with. Do you see any commonalities in like the epistemological attitudes? Is there anything that you would say the reason why Maria Montessori resonated with me and Rand resonated with me is because they have something in common? Or is it two separate domains?
I mean, they definitely have something I mean, they are separate domains with kind of separate projects, very distinct projects, and I would never want to run them together, even accidentally. But there's a lot of things that are in common between them, both fundamental things and even accidental things. I mean, Rand wrote about Montessori and how much she admired Montessori, and she supervised the publication and edited the publication of articles about how Montessori's pedagogy resonates with her ethics and especially her epistemology. So it's not like, this isn't like some novel discovery of Matt, like, oh my gosh, like I'm bringing these two thinkers together. Lots of people that are, Montessori attracts a lot of different people. There are a lot of different people who see something that they like in Montessori. very different kinds of people. Like, I mean, right now Montessori is mainly dominated by people who are very left of center, the Montessori movement, who are very left of center, who think of it as peace education, who think of it as very progressive. That's not the only kind of person who's been attracted to Montessori. Catholics love Montessori. Montessori was Catholic. And so a lot of Catholic preschool education has Montessori inspiration. There are academics who love Montessori because her math materials are great. What Rand saw in Montessori, and what I think, certainly, maybe this isn't so much what Rand saw in Montessori, but this is certainly what I see in Montessori, is to use now objectivist terminology that Montessori didn't use, is respect for the child as a valuer, as a up-and-coming valuer, as a developing valuer, as somebody that sets goals and is learning to set goals and stick with them and to think about them and to build a life around those goals and to build character around something very teleological, something very externally directed and goal setting and doing things and very active. And then there's a bunch of other things to say too. I mean, what Rand and what many other objectivists have seen in Montessori that they admire so much is there is a early childhood curriculum, a scope and sequence that builds from the concrete to the abstract in a very, very brilliant way that is very consonant with what Rand said about how concepts are formed and how epistemology works. So that's another, and I think that's true. It's true that there's resonance there, and that's also great. But yeah, I think that the thing that I find is attractive about Montessori is the idea of the child as an agent, as an independent person who is actively developing powers, and to really just understand everything through that lens.
So do you feel like we still need a lot of more advancements in the philosophy of education? Did Maria Montessori start it, and there's a lot of work still to be done? How do you feel about the philosophy of education? What's the status of that?
I mean, so putting aside philosophy of education for a second, education as a whole is a very primitive field. It's like medicine at the time of Galen, at the time of the Roman Republic, which isn't nothing. Like Galen knew, we know how to set bones. We know something about how the body works. A lot of what we know is wrong, and we can't do that much. And if you go to any given doctor, he's as likely to mess you up as he is to help you. That's where education is. It's a very primitive field. Montessori advanced the field a lot. I don't know what exactly the analogy is. In some moods, I'm like, she was the Newton of education. In some moods, I'm like, she was like the Galileo. She was a genius. She advanced the field a lot. Exactly how much, I think, remains to be seen. We're a little bit early in history. She only died 70 years ago. But there's a ton of work to be done in education, the full stack, including the philosophy of education, for sure.
Where do you see the main gaps? I mean, what's still, evidently missing?
I mean, they're at the level of implementation, there are entire areas of curriculum where there is almost nothing good. If you want to buy math curriculum for your 7-year-old, there are options in the market. There is a market for math curriculum. If you want to buy history curriculum for your 7-year-old, there is almost nothing. There is no market. Nobody cares about this. And we can talk about reasons for that. But I mean, things are more like the history. Most important things are more like history than they are like math. Math and reading, there's been some systematization and advancement. Most things, there's been very little. What do and should schools look like? How much variety should there be in kind of different kinds of school projects? What does parenting look like? All of these things need to be worked out. In terms of philosophy, I mean, how should you think about why should you have children and what does it look like to raise them and what should the goals be in raising a child and what does success look like? I think all of that is under-theorized. Which isn't to say that there are no answers or that there aren't people who have really good things to say about that, like Montessori, but I mean, even just Montessori, the things that are good in Montessori, the last word that she wrote was in 1951 or 1952. I can't remember if she wrote the year that she died. That is historical works that are not that relatable right now. All of that, those truths need to be translated to a modern audience and integrated with modern concerns that some modern concerns are just not the same as the concerns that Montessori had. So even just taking if you think Montessori's philosophy is basically correct, which I think roughly, approximately, I would say that. The internet didn't exist when Montessori was alive. YouTube didn't exist. There weren't algorithms that tried to feed our kids Cocomelon. How should we think about that stuff? Like nobody, I mean, that you need kind of like, I mean, what Rand did in her life for most of her later life after Atlas, which is this kind of like mid-level cultural analysis. A lot of that mid-level work in education needs to be done. There are some people doing some things, but like as a field, it's pretty primitive. So I would say it's a very, very exciting field to work in because it's primitive. But it is primitive, and this perspective that I'm saying, where it's like a primitive field, like almost nobody in the field thinks that way. Most people think we have it basically figured out. And that is just getting that kind of meta level clarity on like, we don't have it figured out. There's a lot of questions and there are more unknowns than there are anything. That is something that I've tried to push in my work.
What is exciting to you in all of that kind of world of opportunities? What are you?
So I think about, I mean, my life's project has two prongs.
Yeah.
My work in education. One is build great school models. Partly because I want my children to go to great schools, but partly because I think the world needs living examples, like concrete examples that you can drive to and go and visit and see and observe for a day of schools that are very different and very good. Schools that are kind of pushing the field forward. It can't just be philosophizing.
Okay.
You need to be able to see it, and you need to be able to kind of like see actual children getting something different and flourishing for that reason. So a huge part of my life over the last 10 years has been doing that at Laporte, then at Guideposts, and now at Alpha School, and with Montessorium. I don't know how much I should go into that now, but this integration of Montessori elementary programming with very high-tech AI tech platforms. That's the pilot classroom that we're running right now. I'm very proud of it. It's very good. So that's one prong, build good school models. The other prong is we need a republic of letters about education. Like thinking and writing and discussion about education sucks. It just needs to be way, way, way elevated. There was one time in history, as far as I know, that discourse on education was quality. And that was at the beginning of the 20th century, during the kind of first wave of progressive education at the time of Dewey and Montessori, the turn of the century, the 1900s. The 1900s through roughly the 1920s, I think, was like a golden age for education discourse. Now, most of what was said in that discourse was bad and wrong, but like the best and brightest minds were like, obviously we should do work in education. Like this is where the action is. And that needs to happen again. And the way to make that happen again is just write and speak and think at a high level in education and to inspire others to do so.
Do you have enough colleagues to have a republic of letters in education? Are there enough interest?
You don't need, yes, and you don't need that many people to have a republic of letters. So I don't know, like ask me when I'm dead, but I think there's a lot of talent in education. There's a lot of talent in education. It's more of a, there's this signal amplification problem, like creating good signal, but there's also drowning out the noise and just kind of like finding the right forums and space to discuss things. And I work on both.
Tell me a little bit about Montessori and what you're running right now. What are the kind of the essentials of the premises behind this?
So Maria Montessori herself did a tremendous amount of work for children between the ages of 2 and 7. Really 3 to 6 now is how that's evolved, but she worked with children from the ages of 2 to 7. That was her original preschool program. And by tremendous amount of work, I mean not just the philosophy, but like the entire curriculum, down to like, here is where you should sit with the child when you're delivering this vocabulary card, and when it goes wrong in one of these 7 ways, here's the forking path that you should go to. I mean, the level of detail of curriculum and training for this program is like more worked out than any in history. And that is why it has scaled and grown and flourished, just because there is this implementation model that she created that's like tightly coupled to this philosophy. Now every kind of 3 years that you go out from that, she did some work, but a little bit less. So like for infants and toddlers, like younger than 2, she did some work, but less than she worked out for the Children's House, for the preschool program. For elementary age children, ages say 6 to 9, she did some work, but less than she did for older upper elementary children, for 9 to 12. She did even less than that. And so for adolescents, she like sketched out some things and helped some collaborators, but like, there's like no curriculum for it. She indicated some things that how she thought it should work, but there's much less work. So So Montessorium is an elementary program. So it's in this range of like, she did a lot, but not as much as we might have hoped to kind of create the enduring program of our dreams that is like future-proof and awesome. So some of it is developing that program so Montessorium is very much a Montessori elementary classroom, which means the students have a 3-hour work period where they're choosing what to do. They're working with hands-on materials. They keep work journals where they like plan their days at the beginning of the day. They have a lot of agency in terms of what they do. They're working through the curriculum at their own pace. All of their lessons are either individual with a teacher or small group. And we've added this AI tech platform to it that was developed at Alpha School. Montessorium is an Alpha School project. I'm a big fan of their platform. I think it's been an incredible value add for Montessorium.
So what does it do? What does how does a kid experience that platform?
So the way that they experience it is there's a shelf with laptops, just like there is a shelf with math materials or a shelf with grammar materials. So there's a shelf with laptops. They go and get their laptop, they log into it. They log into the Time Back platform, which is Alpha's platform, and it gives them a list of lessons to do on the computer today that's perfectly customized to them. And they go through those lessons, and there's like a progress bar, a ring that fills up as they do those lessons, and children love filling up their progress bars. I mean, we don't incentivize them any more than like, close your rings because that's closing your rings. And they do it just because for the same reason that adults like closing their rings on their Apple Watch.
Right.
Like, oh, I've got to walk another 1,000 steps today to close my rings. Like, that's kind of how they feel about it. It's a visualization of a process that they feel good about.
What are the subjects that you focused on?
There's it depends on the student. So on the platform supports all subjects, including, there's a ton of, our students are at an age where there's a ton of math and literacy. There's a reading app called Alpha Reads, and there's other kinds of reading apps that we use too. So some of our apps are in-house, some of them are off the shelf. But we get a lot of content in through the reading apps. So if a child is learning reading comprehension, like what are they reading to get reading comprehension? They might be reading about Roman myths, in which case they're getting a kind of literature and a kind of history. They might be reading about...
Did you have anything to do with the pedagogy that went into those models, or how would you...
I mean, I give a lot of feedback now, so I'm influencing it. But no, all this predates me, so I did not invent any of this. I was hired by Alpha School.
But do you like what it's doing, how it activates?
I do like it, and I mean, there are things that I like about it, and there are things that I don't like about it. I like the project. I would say I really love the project, even where there are particular things that I think are silly or that I hate. You know, like, I mean, I could show you, like, there are like, I mean, on any given day, I like might be looking over a student's screen, and I'm just like, this is a reading comprehension question that makes no sense. This is terrible. Most of what I see is good, and I like it, but like, there's a lot of warts in the system. But it's like a process. It's improving all the time. The people at Alpha take my feedback very seriously. I like having my feedback taken seriously. I've never done anything other than speak my mind, and I think that the project of can we make education technology that's good, and is AI a part of that, is a project that is important and that I think will be helpful to educators, and I'm happy to be part of it. So,
I saw an interview with you when I sent it a couple of friends of like more screens. It was not to that effect, but you have a very different view of this kind of alarmist view of like, oh, you know, the social media is destroying our minds, our kids' minds. So what is the essence of your view of technology, screens in a child's life, and not just in the classroom?
So the precise way to put my view is that I don't think that screen time is a real concept. I mean, it's what Rand would call a package deal or an anti-concept. Like, like playing Candy Crush on your phone when you should be sleeping, you know, at 1 a.m. because you have insomnia.
It's not the same.
It's fundamentally different than like calling your grandma on FaceTime.
Right.
It's just those two things should not both be called screen time. Like,
or going to a rabbit hole on YouTube.
Yeah, or going on a rabbit. Yeah, exactly. Or like, let's figure out how to open this car door that we dropped our bookmark into with my 3-year-old. We're going to open up YouTube to do that because I don't know how the hell to do that, you know? And then like we're both watching YouTube videos, and it's like my daughter is seeing how we did it, and then we imitate them as best as we can, and we might ask, nowadays, the chatbots weren't that good when this happened, but nowadays we might ask robots to help us, and robots are awesome at helping us. I do this all the time with my children. I'm like, let's ask the robot. All of these things are good. So in some cases, tremendous goods for childhood. There are also things on screens that I think are horrible. Like, I will not let my children watch hours of YouTube shorts that the algorithm recommends to them, and they know that I won't let them do that. I think that there's too much junk food of the soul on the internet. But basically, I think information technology it's a good thing for humanity, which is a controversial view, and it's a good thing for childhood. The interface between children and tech is primitive, and so you need to be very active as a parent if you want to do it wisely. But I am glad, very, very, very glad that I'm raising children in an age of the internet and digital technology. They get a lot of it, and I think that they get a lot out of it. Yeah.
What is your view of the state of education in general? I mean, let me ask you this way. If you had to change one thing, if you had the power to change one fundamental things about the state of education today in America, where would you start?
I mean, it would definitely be ending public education, but that's like such a big thing to do, ending public education, that it's like, I don't even want to entertain it as a fantasy without like a 30-year phase-out plan, you know? Like it's not like I would just unplug it overnight and like laugh gleefully as like parents everywhere scrambled to find babysitters that didn't know how to teach their kids how to read. That would be terrible. Education in this country is, education in the developed world, universal education. What we think of as education today, like K-12 education, certainly K-8 education, is just coextensive with state education. Like education got universalized at the same time as the government got involved in education everywhere in the world. And so what it looks like to have a very different market or political economy around education is something that we can speculate about, but I think like we basically don't know. And kind of getting to a path where there's something like universal education or a real market, consumer market in education, and that's the way that education is distributed, it's like speculative. It's like so unknown to the world that it's speculative. There are other kind of smaller things that I think if I could make like one very tactical change, something that I've argued about, something that I've argued that we should do, which again is like a crazy thing to say, but several degrees less crazy than let's eliminate public education, is I would eliminate high school.
Completely.
Yeah.
And send them to work?
Work or go to college early, or just like there's a variety of things that happen when you're 14. Sometimes you work part-time and go to certain different kinds of classes or schools part-time. Sometimes you take some college courses. For some students, you might just go straight to college. But this entire 4-year zone between the ages of 14 and 18, where like the default thing that happens is the same thing that happened to you when you were in middle school and elementary school. You're sitting at a desk, you're doing what teachers say. Yeah. This occupies most of your day. Getting a job is strongly discouraged. Having some sort of extracurricular for the sake of the college application is encouraged, but like a lot of those things are fake. Like it's just such a like this is your introduction to adulthood, is like everything is fake and you have no agency. That's like horrible. And I mean, high school is more recent than K-8. It's like, there is like if you look at the ancient Greeks, they were like, what do we do with these teenagers who like clearly aren't old? Even the aristocrats are like, clearly they're not old enough to like be running Athens, but like we also like don't want them sitting at desks. So what should we do? I don't know, like give them horse riding classes. Like, you know, like there's this question as to like what to do with high school students. And I think that is a real question, but our current answer to that is terrible. It's really, really terrible. Which isn't to say that there aren't particular high schools that aren't great. I like Alpha School's high school is like you study for the SAT for a couple hours a day, and then you do a passion project. Like, and the children's passion project, the students' passion project are things like starting businesses and like you know, actual real writing for real audiences that get like millions of views, and like actual research in labs and publishing in Nature. I mean, that kind of stuff is great, but like that's not what high school students are doing by and large. So that's one of my ideas. I have many. I mean, it's just the state of education is the one word description of the state of education is ossified. It's ossified. It's stuck. It's not advancing. It's frozen. It's bureaucratized into this frozen state that's just like at best fine and at worst pretty bad, and nobody's benefiting from it, and it's not helping civilization along. And the question is like, how do you get it unstuck? Like, what do you do to get it unstuck? And my actual non-fantasy answer is you build great school models and you try to kickstart a republic of letters on education. Like that's my actual answer. as to my like dream answer, like what would you do with a magic wand? Like it's hard to say. I mean, most parents like public school, so it's not like everybody thinks what I'm thinking is crazy. The things that I'm saying, and I know that they're very, very unpopular. So it's not like this is what my life is about. My life is not about ending public education.
And if I don't have a Montessori or like an alpha school next to me, would you recommend parents to homeschool? Do you think the homeschool movement is an improvement, or is it just
homeschool
diversion?
movement is good.
Yeah.
The homeschool movement is good. It is fundamentally good, and it should be thought of as good. I would not necessarily recommend to any particular parent that they homeschool. For a particular parent, I would say you've got to integrate your parenting with your life. Homeschooling is a huge opportunity cost for one or both parents.
Right.
Even organizing a homeschool co-op is like that's like a project that you're now doing.
Yeah.
That's like different than like you're hiring a school to do it, or you're sending your kid to public school. I would look at the schools around you, or look at the schools that you'd be willing to move to and see how good they are, and actually visit in person. Not just, I don't think you should take the perspective of like Matt said public school is terrible, so I'm not going to say like go and visit your public school, see what they'll tell you, see what they'll show you. What specific teacher would your child get? If you've got an 8-year-old, like, do you think that your child would like this particular teacher? Like, maybe you can send them for a year. I think you should figure it out with all the resources at your disposal in a way that fits with your life, and then create a kind of developmental plan or parenting plan that accords with your total circumstances. Parenting, everything in parenting is like this. Like, but yes, homeschool, it's great. Like, I'm not against it. And there are nearby possible universes in where I'm homeschooling my children. That's not the actual universe. I can send them to a great school, but yeah.
You and I went to kind of an offsite in Colorado, and we were talking about education in general. And what struck me is your emphasis on work. Work. What is it about work? I mean, Ayn Rand identifies work and our central purpose as the central purpose of our lives. Is that coming from the same perspective of like work is how we manifest who we are? And what does that mean in education? Why did you, every time I asked you about what we need more of at that age, like an older age, is like let them work.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that that's true of younger ages. I mean, this is Montessori's insight, is that babies and toddlers have work. For them, the work might be the work of peeling an orange. Peeling an orange is not work for a grown-up in the same way that it is for a toddler, but it is for a toddler. Yeah, I mean, work is, it kind of has two functions in a life, two related functions that are like this. They're both sides of the same coin. One is having a purpose where you actually work to nudge the universe in some direction that it is better for you, is important for living. So this is the kind of life is the standard perspective in objectivism. Like you are making something new that is good for human beings, new medicine, new food. Or you're cleaning your house, and like that's arranging things in a way that's better for you, where you can find things more easily. You're kind of putting energy into the system, and you're expecting the world to rearrange itself in accordance with your energy in a way that benefits you or benefits others in a way that they remunerate you for. So that's one sense of work. The other sense of work is more spiritual or psychological. It's important for people to have purposes that they feel like they can accomplish and that they can accomplish, that they experience these things, and that they derive meaning and emotional satisfaction out of. So this is the kind of meaning or psychological side of work. And children need both of these things too. Even small children need, they need to peel an orange so that they could eat the orange. And they need to peel an orange because they need to know that they're the sort of people who can do things in the world that satisfy their own needs, and they need to be able to feel happy about that and feel like this is what life is about. Life is about things like this. Now, as you get older, and as your range gets wider, and as you start to look out into the world and think like, wow, oh my gosh, I live in a modern complex economy where like, in order to survive, you can do all sorts of complicated things, and there's all sorts of ways to contribute to the human project, and there's all sorts of things that I might be able to do and get paid for that weren't even possible a few hundred years ago. Hopefully you have that perspective. The thing to do as a teenager is to start dipping your toe in the water, to start experimenting with like, what's it like to work in the economy at things that I care about and succeed at those things and to get paid for those things, and to start to think about, okay, like this is going well, like what would it look like to pursue this further? Do I want my whole life to be like this? I don't know yet. Are there other things that I want to try? But there's no way to do any of that as a teen unless you're doing it for real. Like there's no simulation that I think functions as like participating in the economy.
So we're missing a whole market of 14 to 22-year-olds working. Do you think in a free society, like, free education, there would be a real market for kids 14, 15 going out and saying, yeah, I don't know how to do a lot, but I'm willing to work for $3 an hour?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's what's missing?
I don't think that what's missing is less on the demand side and more on the supply side. There are very, very few middle-class parents who think like, it's great when my kid, like, rather than going to school, like, you should go and work at Baskin Robbins, or you should go and get an internship, or I think that's insofar as it happens, it's a kind of it's like a culturally niche signifier rather than like something that you really care about the value of this experience for the child in general. But yeah, I mean, I think if people were willing to do it, if we had a world where like that was the expectation, like, would there be opportunities for children? Yeah, I'm not worried about opportunities. I'm worried about the supply side. It's like that we block children from doing that, block teenagers from doing that.
So you're a PhD philosophy. I mean, when was the first time you realized that you're interested in those ideas, in those kind of fundamental
in philosophy?
Questions? Yes. Was that early? Were you like a teenager?
Very early, yeah. I mean, I don't remember. So I was raised by a minister, an Episcopalian minister, and I don't know how much of it was tied in with like religion and questioning religion and the big ideas. Like we had a pretty liberal artsy household, and a lot of the ideas that my parents held I was skeptical of at a pretty young age, and that was at least part of it.
Does that include God?
Yeah, and navigating that. Yeah, I mean, I stopped going to church when I was 12, and I mean, there's a whole story there. But even apart from that, like, I think that was part of the air in which I got interested in things, part of the environment, part of my nutrients. But I've always just been interested in the big ideas.
Was there something specific that attracted you? I mean, questions of morality? Was it, metaphysics of God and, the nature of the universe? What was the kind of the spark behind it?
So some of my earliest memories, philosophical memories, not my like first memories, but my earliest philosophical memories are being like 8 and 10 and 12, and trying to make sense of things that were intensely meaningful to me, like very ordinary things for a child. Like I loved drawing. I was starting to get crushes on girls, which is, crush is an apt term. It's like an overwhelming experience for a boy growing up. When
you go back home, it's like, what am I experiencing? Well, how did
but like when like the frameworks for this is very meaningful.
Right.
Like this is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
How do you make sense of meaning? Like in what contexts? What words can you use to describe this? And like all of the frameworks around meaning were religious when I was growing up, and none of them actually added any light or clarity as to like what the experience is. Like, you're part of something bigger. This is you seeing God in the small things. I'm like, so I have a crush on a girl and I'm seeing God in the small things. Like I just like it was hard for me to kind of like even process what the arguments were. And then when I would talk about it more with adults, like, that was also the age at which I pretty quickly got the sense of, as a lot of smart children do, whether or not they're philosophical, of like, oh wow, like a lot of the things that the grown-ups around me talk about all the time, or a lot of the things that grown-ups tell me, like, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, and like, they don't know what they're talking about any more than like the kids around me don't know what they're talking about. And that was like a switch flipping, like a Gestalt switch in perspective.
And were there other kids that were in that with you, or did you feel alone in the world asking those kind of challenging those fundamentals?
I had nerdy friends, but I think at the kinds of things that I was the most interested in, that kind of level of ethics and aesthetics and meaning and psychology, I was pursuing those interests pretty much alone. I think I had like internet friends that I would sometimes talk about them with, but certainly like my real life friends, I don't think I had any. This was the Wild West days of the internet. So,
What were you reading? I mean, did you educate yourself through reading books? What influenced you?
yeah, I read a lot of fiction, a lot of sci-fi. I read a fair amount of history, like hard nonfiction history. Started with textbooks and then started to read popular accounts of, like I think I read most of The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, Gibbon's, when I was in high school. I don't think I made it through every single volume, but I made it through most of them. I started dabbling in ancient Greek. I got really, really, really interested in the psychology of perception. I don't know why. I just got into it. Like I'd always loved drawing and perspective. So some of it was like, if you're into drawing, you're into like shading and perspective and like how to make 3D projections go into 2D. And I got really into, I can't even remember how I first discovered James Gibson and ecological psychology. But I got into that before I got into college. And that was a huge formative role. And then I had an English teacher who introduced me to the Fountainhead, and that was huge.
And that was in college?
That was in high school.
High school.
Yeah, I was a junior.
So the first engagement with Rand was Fountainhead.
Yeah. Yep.
What was the kind of emotional response to that book? How would you describe it?
Very positive and intense.
Were you in the camp of like, yeah, this is what it should be like, or like, oh my God, this is radically different than everything I ever thought about?
It felt simpatico. Like it felt like, it didn't feel like, oh my God, this is overthrowing everything that I believed. But it also didn't feel like I've already believed all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It felt like this is new and this resonates and this is very helpful and this is very stirring and inspiring. I mean, when I was a junior in high school, I was more like Rourke, not like in terms of being a genius, but in terms of like being a, laconic, like kind of very shy. Not that Rourke is shy, but just very introverted, content with myself guy, very non-social. And so that resonated with me at the time too. Just like this can be a good kind of life. Like I'd always felt like there's something wrong with me for not being more extroverted. So yeah.
And how long before you picked up Atlas?
Oh, like weeks.
Weeks.
Yeah.
And what was the experience going through that?
I read it this summer. So I got into this really, really great, now defunct program. So I went to a public school in Tennessee. That's where I was in high school. And 2 students per year from my high school, 2 juniors or seniors, got to go to a private school in New York or near New York City for a semester, a boarding school, and like live there for a semester with 20 other students from all around the country. And there was a scholarship in my that was attached to my high school through the Coca-Cola Foundation that allowed me to. I applied, I got it, I went. And the summer before I like left home for the first time and went to New York, I like read Atlas Shrugged. And then I kind of like put it down and I was like, I'm going out into the world, totally new context, away from my parents, away from my family, away from almost everybody that I know. There was one really good friend that I had there, but away from almost everybody. And I'm just gonna kind of, like, this is a good time to like explore and just like think fresh about things and to not be attached to any particular idea and to just see where things go. And that was kind of where I left it with Atlas. I was like overwhelmed and then kind of put it aside for almost a year. And I didn't pick up the books again until I went to college. But it was like, it was transformative.
And you picked philosophy as your major right off the bat, or was that? No?
I mean, I went to a little liberal arts college. I like didn't know what I wanted to do. At first, I was like, I went there because they had a good arts program. I thought I would do drawing. Didn't want to do that. I did some poetry. Then I studied a bunch of psychology, including developmental psychology. They had a preschool lab school on campus, and I spent a ton of time with children. I was the assistant preschool teacher for the 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds. I think every semester I was a preschool teacher there. Did every developmental psych course. I babysat a ton. So I've always loved kids, but like college was a time when I was like spending lots and lots and lots of time with young. I was the boy preschool teacher like throughout all of college. That was like my identity. But then I started doing philosophy too. So I was all over the place.
And when did philosophy kind of rose as something you want to?
I think it's at some point. I think when I was like, I can't remember if it was when I was a sophomore or a junior. I mean, I was considering so many things. I was like, there's psychology and there's also film. I had a bunch of friends that were interested in film, and there's drawing and arts, and I was doing a bunch of stuff with tech and IT. That's how I paid my way through college. I had jobs where I was my college's webmaster, and I did a bunch of stuff like that. At some point it occurred to me, I had this epiphany over the summer of like, wait, I just need to decide what I want to do. Like, no, like all these things are good.
Yeah.
It's up to me. I just need to impose a direction. I don't know what I'm waiting for. I can advance the plot of my life by like picking a direction to pick and go. And I just sat down one weekend and I was like, actually what I'm most interested in is philosophy. That's kind of the common thread underneath everything. And I decided to do philosophy for the rest of my time in college. Yeah. It was pretty late when I decided to apply to grad school, like way too late. Like to the point of like, I didn't know what I was doing and I hadn't taken the right classes, but yeah.
What part of philosophy attracts you most, or attracted you when you went all the way to PhD?
I mean, when I first started, around the time when I applied to PhD programs, I was deeply invested in the history of philosophy, especially some ancient philosophy, but especially early modern philosophy. I did a lot with Locke. I did a lot with early psychologists that were basically kind of philosophers part-time, but also were studying psychology and giving birth to psychology. I was really interested in that period of intellectual history. And around halfway through my PhD program, I was like, I can't spend the rest of my life writing papers on like, what exactly did Locke mean in this part of the essay? And like, I'm actually just interested in the ideas more generally, and the history is just a kind of like useful lens on that. And I pivoted really hard and started doing philosophy of psychology, philosophy of cognitive science. So yeah.
And at that time you were kind of deepening your understanding of objectivism. What happened? When did you start diving into objectivism as a philosophy?
That I did in college.
Yeah.
Let's see. So when I first got to college, I started trying to find other objectivist stuff on the internet. There was nobody at my college. That's not true. I had a few close friends, but it was like nobody, there was no like club or anything like that, and certainly no faculty. All I found on the internet were a bunch of what I felt like at the time were cranks. I don't even know, I was like, these are crazy people, this is stupid. And I just like wrote, I didn't know there was a movement or anything like that. And then after 9/11, so I was in the New York area for 9/11, Leonard Peikoff published "And States Who Sponsor Terrorism" in the New York Times, I think. So I think ARI took out an ad for this full-length essay. I thought that essay was very good. And one thing led to another, and then I ended up attending some other ARI events. And I think I went to my first OCon when I was a junior in 2003, and met a bunch of people there. Started taking OAC classes shortly after that. So it was really before I got into grad school, because I had to apply to grad school 3 times. Like, it was hard for me to get into grad school. It was before I got into grad school, I think I had finished most of what I was doing with the OAC. So I did the first 2 years of the OAC like full time. And then I kind of faded away into the background, partly because at the time the program was really optimized around like, write an op-ed, and I'm like, I'm writing academic papers, I don't want to write an op-ed. And then the other thing that happened was a bunch of people that I had met at objectivist conferences came together and formed the Undercurrent, which was the student-run newspaper project that we kind of bootstrapped. And like Gina, my now wife, was in that. We weren't dating at the time. We were not even flirting at the time, but we were working together.
Ben was involved.
Ben was involved. Ray and Rebecca Gurn were like leading it. And they were starting to date at the time. And, I mean, this was like, I did a lot of editing of other people's writing, tons and tons of editing, tons of thinking. But I also like designed I was like the print designer for the newspaper. And so a ton of good stuff came out of that. And I'm in touch with almost everybody that was involved in that project since then. So that was like a core thing in my life. And all this, I stopped being involved in the Undercurrent around the time that I started grad school. So there's this like intense 3-year period of like, I went to a bunch of OCons, I took OAC classes, I was like getting really deep into it. And then I went to grad school and I was kind of doing my own thing. So I kind of go back.
So how do you ended up in education, and why education? Can you explain to me why education is so important as a field of expertise?
I mean, I've always been interested in it. When I was in school at completely fine public schools, like completely fine in the sense of like they weren't terrible, like it wasn't like a failing schools, they were like average or above average or pretty good public schools. I didn't like them. I often thought like, here's what I would do in this situation, or like, here's how I think it should be designed, or here's why this is a waste of time, or like, here's what I want to be doing. So I was a very active thinker about my own education. I've always loved children. I was like babysitting babies when I was 12. I was a preschool teacher in college. So I have this collection of interests around, I like education. I like children. It's fascinating to me. It's always felt like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here. Like it's not that hard to make things much, much better. It would be fun to be in charge of things like this. It would be fun to do work around this kind of thing. I didn't do much with it until several years after I finished grad school. I was a visiting professor of philosophy for 2 or 3 years before I decided to switch careers. I, at some point, decided that academic philosophy was not for me. And when I did that, I was like, what am I going to do next? And I decided that philosophy was wrong for me. Academic philosophy was wrong for me before I knew it was right. And I kind of surveyed the landscape. I was like, I've done stuff in tech. I could go and do that. I like that. I've done stuff with children. What would that even look like? And one of my very close friends, Ray Gurn, was like, who I'd worked with on the Undercurrent, was like, I'm building a school network. Let me fly you out to California. You've got to see Montessori. And I flew out and I saw Montessori for the first time, and I fell completely in love with it.
That was the Laporte's?
Yeah, that was Laporte.
Yeah. So you joined them, and is that where kind of your kind of specialization in education started to? Yeah. I
mean, a couple of years at Laporte, and then for the first few years at Higher Ground, I basically gave myself a PhD in education.
So when did you start engaging with Montessori?
Right when I started joining Laporte. Before I started joining Laporte,
As a practitioner, or did you start reading immediately?
So I started reading before I got the job, just because I was interested. I mean, when it's like, oh, Matt, there's a thing called Montessori. Like, how should you learn about it? And like me, who am trained in intellectual history, I'm like, I'm going to read all of her letters and epistolary and all of her works and all of her critics. And so, I mean, I've basically been doing that for the last 10, 12 years. That started right away. I have a lot of experience observing classrooms, some experience in Montessori classrooms, but I'm mainly an intellectual. So yeah.
So you've studied enough philosophy and objectivism to have a view of objectivism as a movement. Well, first, why do you think? What is your perspective of why Rand is still being, rejected from philosophy, and why do you think most philosophers just don't want to engage with her, don't want to even call her a philosopher, if you will?
I mean, the philosophical reason is that they don't like her views. I mean, her views in every area are pretty far outside the mainstream. Usually, in a particular, like in ethics, you can find people who advocate egoism. In academic philosophy, in metaphysics or philosophical anthropology, you can find people who advocate for libertarianism or free will. So it's not like if you go view by view, you can find people who like are aligned with her in particular ways. But like as a complete set, it's very radical and very different. A, B, academic philosophy is allergic to systems thinkers. So like putting aside the content of the system, the idea of like, I have a view on everything. I have a view on ethics. I have a view on epistemology. I have a comprehensive philosophy. Like the only place where philosophers study people like that are in the history of philosophy. And philosophers are suspicious of people and skeptical of people. They consider them all ideologues, kind of proponents of ideology rather than philosophy or religions, basically. Who are more systemic, and that's a bias in the broader culture, by the way. Like if you like go to Silicon Valley and talk to smart people, like they're suspicious of systems thinkers. So there's that, and then the third thing, which I think is important, is that Rand was always extra academic. Like Montessori was like this too.
Right.
She developed her work outside of academia. She was a novelist. She ended up writing more and more technical things and more philosophical things, but like it's not like she was in grad school and people hated her ideas. She was never part of academia. And so there's a whole process by which you kind of get folded into a humanistic field or a scientific field, and she just bypassed that entire process, and academic institutions have never been particularly friendly to people who are like that, or insofar as they are, it's the exception and not the rule. Montessori is another person who is very grassroots and extra academic, and educators still by and large don't like her. She's like she's a minority figure in education. In academic education in like teachers' colleges or education research facilities, she's an extreme minority. Like she's like 100 times more popular with parents than she is with, professional academic educators. So that's just the fate of people who are extra academic, and I think you have to find bridge figures or tolerate that or learn to accept it.
And what do you think about, like you talked about what it was like getting into objectivism back when you were getting into it, and are you happy with the way objectivism is in a way progressing? Would you expect it to move slower, faster, in different direction?
When I grew up in the movement, when I was like the kind of several year period where I was attending all the OCONs and when I was taking classes with ARI, there was a very strong and specific narrative that the way for objectivism to win in the world was to have philosophy professors who join increasingly prestigious departments of philosophy and train graduate students and publish in philosophy. It was like a very academic philosophy-centric approach. I don't know how much I bought that at the time. That's certainly not how it's played out. There's been some successes in those areas.
Yeah, although it was tried. I mean,
yeah,
there was
it was tried, and there's been some success. But like, it's not like there's no objectivists in academia. There are, but I think part of what's happened in the broader world over the last 20 years, 25 years, 30 years is the internet has happened, and that it's hard to overstate how important that is. Like, I think I could give you a list of reasons why this is the most important thing to ever happen to humanity, and I would still be underselling it. But part of what that's meant proximally is that we live in a world with many fewer gatekeepers, where gatekeepers are much less important and where it's easier to get an audience and it's easier to find and build a community than ever.
Right.
And from that perspective, like in my personal world of friends that I made at the time and friends that I made since then from the objectivist community and people that have gone on to do cool stuff, I don't know, it looks pretty good to me, which isn't to say that there couldn't be more done, but like people have their projects and are living their lives and are having an impact that I think is positive, and that is very informed by this very powerful philosophy, and they're, objectivism is rocket fuel for all these people, and like I think that people can see that. So
if objectivism was in one day have a major cultural influence and impact, in what way do you think it'll happen?
I think it's already had a major cultural influence. Like I don't know. I mean,
tell me how you evaluate that.
Tons of people have read The Fountainhead. Tons of people have read Atlas Shrugged. People talk about it all the time as like a work that's inspired them. When terrible things happen, people are like, "This is like a villain out of Atlas Shrugged." I'm constantly encountering people who are like, "I'm reading Atlas for the first time," and man, like, I know it's gotten mixed reviews, but I'm really loving it.
Yeah,
and like,
you see tweets with like John Galt, and like people are supposed to know what that is.
But even beyond those tweets, people who are like, I know Rand is a controversial figure, but I think that the way that she portrays romance is really awesome, and like I want my romances to be like that. Like, the range of kind of influence and admiration that her novels have evoked is. I think if you could like Control Z on Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead and like imagine a world in which those books weren't published, I think it would look very different. Right. Very, very different. It's hard to know exactly how it would look because it's not like the way that it's influenced the culture is like everybody knows this stuff and everybody learns it and it's like considered an American classic. So if that's winning, it's not that. But it's had and is having a massive impact in 1,000 different ways. What would it look like for it to have more impact? I don't know. I think my guess is that there will be a small handful of bridge figures, like, 1 to 10 bridge figures who have kind of internalized important things from Rand and who are writing in their own voices in their own fields and who are seen as like objectivists or Randians or like this is the perspective that they're coming from and who are widely admired, kind of on their own terms, not just for like being a transmission belt, but like, wow, this person is smart. They have perspective. Like they illuminate a bunch of different things. Like I want to hoover up all their stuff. I think kind of having the right people in the right fields with those views in the right ways at the right times is probably how I see it progressing. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to. This is all speculative. Like I don't know. Like I don't know. We live in a very populist time.
Yes.
And that is the forms in which one expects change to happen are often not the forms that one sees happening, and that's true of both good and bad things. And it's just, I'm loath to kind of predict how things are going to go.
If you were able to do I would say, a workshop with either Maria Montessori or Rand, and you were to choose the theme and the subject and the discussion, who would you choose, and what would be the theme or the subject of the seminar?
I mean, I would invite them to the Montessori classroom, and I would tell them to tell me everything that's good and bad about it. I mean, for 100% I would do that. I would have a week-long workshop where they came and they observed every single day.
Yeah.
And then every single night we would stay out until 1 a.m. drinking and like writing essays on like everything that's good and bad and like spitballing ideas. Like it's like, I mean, that would be by far the most valuable thing. And which isn't to say that like very intellectual things couldn't come out of that, but I think having a powerful theoretical thinker engage with a concrete that you are working on is the best form of workshop in education. In terms of topics, I mean, the thing that's been on my mind that I'm working on a lot right now is so it is 2026 as of the moment of this recording. It's the end of March, the last couple days of March. It's America's 250th anniversary. You would think that across the country there would be lots of people in K-12, K-8 and education that were like doing a lot for America's 250th anniversary. Right. There's like nothing. And I find that very disappointing. I think I know why it's happening. I think it's because everything political and everything kind of American has become polarized and toxic.
And non-American in a way.
Yeah, but like people, even saying things like, what does the Revolutionary War mean? So 2 weeks ago, 250 years ago, George Washington kicked the British out of Boston for the first time. Evacuation Day happened. It was the first major victory of the Revolutionary War. It was the first time that America had a standing army that they started to call the Continental Army. So this kicked off the Revolutionary War. And like, this is just incredible story to tell. Like, and I think people are like nervous about telling it. I mean, I also think people don't know it. There's a lot that goes into why isn't this discussed. But if I could have a workshop with luminaries, like genius luminaries, on like, how should we think about telling the story of American history to first graders, to second graders, to third graders, like from bottom to top. Like, here are the resources that we have. Like there's a TV show that got created by PBS in the early aughts that I think is quite good called Liberty's Kids. We could sit and watch Liberty's Kids and think like, how would we, this is what I'm going to be doing at Montessori. I'm like, how would you do this to a elementary classroom? Like, what would you ask them to think about? Is this good material? How would you modify it? Like, getting into a slice of curriculum like this that I think is really important and really underdeveloped. Where, I think at present, basically Americans don't learn American history in K-12 at all. That rounds to true. They learn a little bit. Some advanced students learn a little bit, but basically you don't learn it. So how do you go from that to like a really good curriculum, given the existing resources and given these classroom structures? I would love to hear geniuses pontificate on that. I think I would like that more than I would like, say, more abstract questions like, how do you think about adolescence working? I like that question from you, and that's something that I think about a lot, but I think like, I don't know, I would get more mileage out of something a little bit more tactical. Yeah.
I want to turn to art.
Okay.
First, a question about the role of art in education. I mean, the way kids get inspired by art, how is that different from the way we experience art as adults? And what is the role of art in a proper education?
I mean, I don't think it is that different from the way that adults get inspired. But
Okay.
the role of, so this is something that Rand is very good on.
Yep.
So she has an essay called Art and Moral Treason that has a couple of different titles in a couple of different publications. But she talks about this at length. So her view is that, which I think is true, is that literature in particular, so put aside the other fine arts for a second, maybe for this discussion, we can bring them back in if you want, but literature in particular serves the function for a human being's worldview and life vision, long-term worldview and life vision, like abstract philosophy, ethics, basically, as the pink tower serves for a child's sense of like the decimal system. So the pink tower is a Montessori material that has 10 cubes on it that increase at 1 centimeter per cube. And there's a bunch of Montessori materials that concretize math. Looking around to see if I have any on the shelves. I don't have any down here. But the Montessori's ideas, abstract ideas like the decimal system, like it's this complicated thing that all of math hinges on. You can explain it to children by concretizing it, by making materials
Here's
that
what it looks like. Yeah.
here's what it looks like. And there's a million brilliant ways to do this where it's not just like you have 10 things. It's subtle. It's like you have a bunch of scattered beads, but when you collect 10 of them, they have to go into a line, because when you go from 9 to 10, like you actually go up a level of place value, and that changes the shape. So there's all sorts of ways that you can concretize abstractions. Literature concretizes moral abstractions in an objectivist sense of moral, not like here are the things that are good and right to do in the world, but in the sense of like, here's what the good life is in a virtue ethic sense. Here's what is admirable. Here's something to shoot for. Here is what a life that you could live that would be meaningful and worth living to you would look like. Literature serves that function for children. Absolutely serves that function for children and adults.
I want to ask you about poetry.
Okay.
Hausman specifically.
Hausman.
Right?
Okay. I love Hausman.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't read it to my children.
What is it? I read it. What is it that moves you in his poetry?
Yeah. So at the level of style, I mean the kind of terseness of the poetry, but still it's terse without losing any kind of evocativeness or eloquence. So it's like very moving and evocative. It's just like picking the exact right word, but not being flowery at all, and like being really cutting into the point. The metrics are impeccable, like the prosody and the meter and the rhyming is all incredible. Just at a stylistic level, like I resonate more with that kind of terse, like pack a lot into a little style than I do with like, I mean, I like Tennyson, but like Tennyson is much more expansive. Just to pick another random great poet that I like. But in terms of substance, there's something about depressive poets. So people who think like the world sucks and it's coming to an end, and you know this is all that there is, and pretty soon we'll all be rotting under the ground. Something about the realists, the kind of depressive realists, that I think, I don't know, it brings something good out in me. I think I don't agree, that's not my worldview. Like my worldview is not like, I mean, Hausman lived through the world wars, and especially World War I, and I mean, his worldview was kind of like the best and brightest of my generation are ordered to die, and this is terrible, and they save the world, but it's all meaningless, and also my lovers all reject me. And I mean, this is the kind of poet that he is. If you've never read Hausman, you should read him. He's great, trust me. This is a terrible sales pitch. But there's something about poets confronting entropy and things that are going wrong that I find very clarifying.
Yeah.
Like I find it actually even a little bit inspiring in a way that's hard to justify or put my finger on.
Does it translate to the music you love?
Maybe. I mean, both my wife and I love Fiona Apple. She has some happy songs, but mostly sad songs, mostly kind of angry breakup songs, that kind of thing. Beethoven is on the kind of stormy side. I don't know if I would call him depressing. No, I don't think it universally translates.
What other arts, kind of forms of art, and like sculpture or painting? You said you drew a lot when you were. Is there any other art that particularly moves you? I love film. I went through, when I was in college, so basically between like 1999 and 2004 or so, I saw like almost literally every movie that came out. I was living around New York, and we would like go to the theater on the weekends, the art house theaters and the popular theaters, and see everything, to the point where I almost like burnt out on the art form. But I love film, and like I love pretty much all of Damien Chazelle's movies, Whiplash, La La Land. La La Land is an important part of my marriage. Before, like I told Gina to see La La Land before we started dating and before we even started flirting, and like that was a sign to her of like, oh my God, Matt understands me. He knew that I would like this. And I don't even like musicals normally, but I really like La La Land. And that's a good. La La Land is an example of a film that like is not my world. It's like the message of La La Land is like, great people wreck their romances, but that's okay. And like that's not my worldview. I think that great people should have their romances. So, so that's another example of a worldview that I really get a lot out of that film, but it's not my worldview. What did you get out of Whiplash? I mean, It's a
It's
controversial.
the same. It's the same. It's the same kind of message. It's so not all of Damien Chazelle's films, but First Man. So in order, Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man. These three films that he made in a row, all have the theme of all kind of explore like people who are truly pursuing excellence and greatness, who are really pushing themselves, and who are really in love with their work, who think that they're doing something important, and this is what, not because Daddy tells them to. Usually, Daddy is telling them to not, but this is something that they want. Often. Are willing to incur costs that seem insane and countercultural. So the costs in Whiplash is like an abusive teacher is okay, is basically like the implication of the film. Like an abusive teacher that like drives his students to suicide, this one guy gets value out of that teacher, and he manages to find a way for this crazy guy to help him. And that's like, so is it okay that he's abusive? Like it's like ambiguous in the film, kind of what the message is. Mm-hmm. In La La Land, it's, I'm giving away the ending of all of these films. In La La Land, it's, you can give up, like you might lose the love of your life because you are both weird people who are broken by pursuing your weird dreams, and that somehow makes you incompatible, and so you go off in different directions, but you get your dream, but like you lose love of, so it's sacrificing romance for work, and that's presented as a positive thing. It's presented as like a win for these characters. Not like maybe it wouldn't have been better for them to get together, but they're both clearly happy at the end. Mm-hmm. And then in First Man, it's family. It's Neil Armstrong, like putting his family through hell, including like the fact that he's lost his daughter and like is still doing these moon missions, and he's losing his colleagues, and he's willing to go through that stress and that suffering to achieve something great of going through the moon. It's like family is going by the wayside in order for me to achieve my great thing. And again, this isn't presented as like, oh, the tragedy of capitalism, like great people pursuing great things and thus the real meaning in life is ruined. It's all these films are presented as like, it's great that these people want to pursue these great things, and yeah, they have insane costs, and this is what crazy people do. Again, not my worldview, but I like that it's being explored. And as far as I know, I've never seen any other movies or read any other books that have those trade-offs endorsed. Yeah. And so that's what's unique about them.
What is the one book, a non-objectivist book, that everyone should read? I mean, it's so good.
Fiction or nonfiction?
You choose.
My number one book recommendation is The Alchemy of Air. I'm trying to see if it's on the bookshelf. It must
Alchemy
be on
of Air.
It must be on these bookshelves. So
The Alchemy of Air.
Exactly.
Who is it by, and what is it about?
I'm blanking on the author's name, which is part of the reason why I want to find one on the bookshelf, so I don't look like an idiot on this interview. I would have to look it up. It's by a great writer who wrote a couple of other nonfiction stories from the history of industry. Is it behind? Thomas Hager. Thomas Hager. Gene is with the city. So it's by Thomas Hager. It tells the story of the invention of artificial fertilizer by the Bosch-Haber process, which is like, sounds like the most boring thing in the universe.
It's like,
it's not the most boring thing in the universe. So in the 19th century, very smart people realized correctly that at the rate that the world was burning through natural fertilizer, and at the rate that the population was growing and the world was industrializing, there would literally not be enough fertilizer to grow food to feed people. And rather than what we do today, which is say, oh no, like the world is coming to an end, like screw everything, like degrowth, they called a meeting of the Royal Society, and they said, somebody needs to figure out a way to make artificial fertilizer. We're putting out a call, like some brilliant chemist needs to figure this out. And a bunch of people started working on it, and with lots and lots of different approaches, some of which involved electrification and electricity, some of which involved complicated chemical processes. And these two Germans, Haber and Bosch, figured it out. So first of all, it's like telling that story of like, what was the fertilizer situation before? Like Darwin and Chile and Argentina and this crazy island full of like seagull guano. It's like, there's this crazy story about natural fertilizer that he does a great job of telling. And then it's the story of Haber and Bosch, who are Germans and end up getting sucked into World War II, partly because it turns out that when you make artificial fertilizer, you're also making explosives. And like, it's this tragedy. It's both this brilliant, I mean, half of the nitrogen atoms in all of our bodies come from their process. Wow. So it's like, they won, they succeeded, they solved the problem. And it's the story of how they solved the problem. It's crazy exciting how they solved the problem.
Sounds like a good movie.
But part of it is like, their project got co-opted by the Nazis, and it ruined them, especially Haber, especially Bosch. It really ruined Bosch, and he didn't know how to process it. And he didn't want his project to be destroyed and didn't want it to be used by the Nazis, and he ended up going along with the Nazis, and it was this horrible, tragic story, and it's like not clear that he did the right thing or what he should have done. And it's like a parable for like, lots of things. So everybody should read this book.
Okay.
The Alchemy of Air.
So what, kind of to end this, what do you find inspiring these days? I mean, in today's world, what's inspiring to you? Some kind of
I find so much inspiring. I mean, I grew up with the internet. So I was 10 when I first got on the internet, which was just the year before that web browsers were invented. I feel like every single year something amazing happens in the digital world, and I love the digital world, and I've always loved it. I've loved it since I was a boy, and now AI is the thing, and I think that AI is very exciting, and I have a whole perspective on it, and I think it's going to help with education. Montessori is using AI in its educational tools. Alice, my older daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, uses ChatGPT like every other day. Like, I think it's a very, very exciting time to be alive in terms of digital innovation, and I only wish that more things were like that. I also like social media and things like that. So I am a very happy denizen of the 21st century, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But there's lots of, the fact that like it's meaningful to me that like one of my favorite, I like old movies and I like old books, but like one of my favorite works of art is La La Land, which came out in 2016, 2015.
Yeah.
And like that, and it's like, I didn't think that there would be like a film that I consider one of the greats to come out soon. So there's always stuff to look out for.
Do you have any living heroes? Anyone who you look up to today that does amazing work?
There are lots of people who I admire. I don't know if I would call any of them living heroes. My heroes are all dead, I think. My actual heroes. I have a kind of pantheon of, there's Aristotle, and then there's of kind of more contemporary figures. There's Rand, Montessori, James Gibson, and James Baldwin, all of whom, those are the 4 people that I've kind of like studied their corpus like a PhD student would study their corpus, and they are all kind of inform my life in different ways, perspective in different ways. Living heroes, everybody alive is so complicated.
No, well, that's okay. What worries you? Is there anything today that worries you? You shared a little bit about what's going on with history and learning about.
There's a ton that worries me.
Yeah.
I don't
There's one
know
thing
where
in particular that.
I think I mentioned earlier in the interview that we live in a very populist age, which means that this is part of there being an internet, and part of there being fewer gatekeepers, and part of it being easier for people to find one another. But that fact has interacted with the intellectual history of the last 50 years in a kind of sharp way, and that has led to there being what's been called a kind of revolt of the public, or skepticism about expertise, that is very, very widespread and very entrenched. And I think, like, under those circumstances, I'm not saying that there are no win conditions, but it just, like, I feel like things are going to get worse before they get better. Like, it's hard to know what the win conditions are. Like what I want, I'm like, there needs to be like somebody who's going to like capture the popular imagination right now and like make a difference and move things in a better direction, and somehow be resonant with the populist sentiment of the age. Like, is that possible? Like, I don't know. Like, everybody who's popular right now politically and culturally seems really bad in one way or another. So, yeah.
Last question. Are you happy? And what does happiness mean to you? How do you internalize being a happy person?
I am very happy. That's a very personal question, to the point where it's like hard to know how to answer it in the particular. The thing that makes me happiest day to day, the kind of form in which I experience my happiness day to day, is, I think my top project right now is giving my children a really phenomenal childhood. And I think that I am succeeding at that project, and it's very real to me every day that I'm succeeding at that project. There's 1,000 ways that I can just kind of sit back and watch them ride their bikes in the neighborhood and reflect on all of the richness and all of the affordances and all of the love and all of the experiences and all the guidance that they're getting, and just like be really happy with how things are going for them. But there's a million things like that. But that's the one that I'm willing to share.
That's great. And the last question,
okay,
because you're gonna inspire another question. So if we have I don't know, a 20, 22, 25-year-old watching, and like, I want to be happy when I'm 40. I don't want to have. have a midlife crisis, I want to know that I'm choosing the right path for me, that I'm expressing myself. What kind of one big piece of advice would you give them as far as like a principle of how to build a life that gets you to a state where you say, I'm a happy person?
But I mean, I would have said that I was a happy person when I was 10, and I would have said that I was a happy person when I was 16, and I would have said that I was a happy person when I was 25. And I don't think I would have said I was a happy person. There are times when I was not, but basically, like, I would have always said that. Though it's had different forms and different reasons. I think, like, if you feel competent to live the life that you want, and you have some sense of what that life is, even if it's not totally clear and coherent, and you're like taking steps and making moves, like, I mean, the advice that I would give that I think people don't do is before you nuke your life and try to reset it and try to figure everything out from first principles in the ground up, be absolutely sure that you are fully capturing the spiritual value and meaning out of the things that you should be capturing spiritual value and meaning out of now, insofar as you have them. So if you have like a pretty good job and a family that you love, or like friends, or like activities or hobbies that you enjoy, like how centered are you on those things?
Know how to value.
Yeah, know how to value those things. Like, but like, I'll give a really stupid example. When I was like, 14 and playing around on computers, like, I didn't think of that was important.
Yeah.
Nobody around me thought that was important. Nobody around me even thought that was like the future of the economy yet. So I wasn't even getting the like boring pragmatic advice of like, you should study this and become an engineer because down that path lies riches and success. People were just like, this is a gimmick, this is a toy, like you're playing video games, like whatever, which it wasn't even true. I wasn't playing that many video games. I was just like, it's like learning how to make web pages and stuff. If I could give my 14-year-old self one bit of advice, it would be that stuff that you're doing right now after school, that you're like messing around with, that you think of as messing around, that everybody else thinks of messing around, that actually matters. Like, that's what you're interested in. That, like, there are affordances here. You can do real things with this. Like, this is where the world is going. That is as significant and as meaningful, as spiritually meaningful as anything else happening in your life, as your friends, as your, like, as philosophy, as whatever, is like tinkering with this is spiritually meaningful. And like, I think I'm very good at like finding little things and assigning great meaning to them. And so that's the skill that I would encourage people to cultivate. I have no idea how to cultivate that skill. Don't ask me that question. But I do think that people's lives have a lot more latent meaning than they're accessing. And if you can learn how to access it, that's often a more helpful first step than like figuring out what to do differently, like at a kind of object level.
That's great, a piece of advice. Matt, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Of course.
Thanks a lot.